Hi everyone, it's Ashley with YNAB, and today it is cold, it is rainy and dreary, and if there's one thing I love to do on days like today, it is to daydream about a vacation somewhere in my future. Travel is a huge priority in our budget, but I'm kind of a nervous traveler. I'm fine once I get to the destination, but it's the airport and the flying, and I let it build up in my mind, and I found the best way to combat that is to really plan. And the more I plan, the more excited I feel. So I'm going to walk you through my routine today, and I hope whether you're planning a weekend away or you're going to a new country, that something I say today will be helpful. And I know that planning and budgeting doesn't seem very carefree and relaxing like a vacation is supposed to be, but I have found that the more work I do on the front end, the more I can truly enjoy myself without any worries when I get to our final destination. Before we start budgeting or creating an itinerary, it's really important to nail down the goal of your vacation. And different trips have different goals. It could be romance, relaxation, creating memories with your family. Maybe you're going on a solo adventure or experiencing a new culture with your best friend, or going and wanting to try all the different kinds of food a new place has to offer. But that goal will drive different things in your budget. I mean, if you're going to experience food, you're going to need to budget more into your daily food allowance every day than if you're going to hike to different waterfalls where you were packing sandwiches and protein bars. So by keeping the goal in your mind as we work through these next steps, that will help you have the most successful plan possible. When I look at the budget, I'll start by listing out the big expenses. Flights or travel to the destination, accommodation, food is pretty much always a big expense. And then if there's any kind of transportation need while we're there, train, metro, or renting a car. Then I'll move on to smaller expenses. If there's a certain activity we want to make sure that we do. I don't really buy souvenirs anymore, but in 2018, I booked my first vacation photographer. It was the best experience. It was money so well spent. We have these beautiful, high quality pictures, and it's just a perfect way to preserve a memory. So I loved that. Other things to think about: if you need someone to house sit or pet sit, you want to make sure to budget for that. And if you're going to need a SIM card or make changes to your data plan. There are so many ways to organize your budget. Sherry, one of our teachers, creates an entire new category group, and then each item gets its own category. So she has her Airbnbs listed, the car rental, the airport hotel, airport parking in Boston. So if you want to be really granular, that's a great option, and I will link her blog post down below. Kelly, another teacher, keeps everything in one category, but she uses something I don't use in my own budget very often, the notes feature. And I think this is a great idea. In the notes section, she'll list out the big expenses and the small expenses, and then start doing a little research. What's the average round trip flight? What is the average that people spend on food, until she goes all the way down to the list. And then she has a big healthy number. And I always like to over budget. And I just feel like giving myself that little bit of cushion just ensures that I'm gonna be more relaxed when it comes to the actual vacation. Once I have that estimated total, I'll create a goal, and the goal type I like for this is spending goal by date. This lets me set that goal in the future, and it tells me exactly how much money I need to contribute to the vacation fund each month. And then if I make a purchase early, like I book my flights, book my accommodations, it doesn't change that monthly funding goal. So make sure to keep me on track. So that kind of goal type is perfect for vacation planning. Now that we've been responsible, we've started saving, we can create the loose itinerary. And loose is important, at least to me. If I overschedule, that leads to stress, which is the exact opposite of what I want on vacation. So I like to leave a little bit of breathing room. Of course, there are a list of places, beautiful places I'd love to see, and delicious food I'd like to try, but I like to leave in breathing room for some spontaneity and for things to come up, which always happens when you're traveling. So for research, of course, I love YouTube. If you go to the search bar and type in the city or country you're interested in and the word vlog, so as an example, Paris vlog, you will get so many videos with so many amazing places that you might like to put on your own itinerary. I also like to add in the season I'll be traveling. So Paris vlog winter. And that way I can see what the temperature might be like when I'll be there and what people are wearing. Pinterest is an awesome resource. People will pin different city guides that are really helpful, and I love collections on Instagram. That's one of my favorite uses for Instagram. I'll look up either by location or by hashtag, and if something looks interesting, I will save it to a collection. Now we've gotten to my absolute favorite tip, and I'm so excited to show it to you guys. So I've opened up Notion, which is the app that I use to keep track, to kind of consolidate all the research that I've done. At the beginning of this video, I mentioned that I think it's important to know the goal of your trip, and let me show you why that's important. You will very quickly see it reflect in both the budget and the itinerary. Last year, Jer and I went to St. Lucia for our 10-year wedding anniversary, and this was by far the easiest trip I've ever had to plan because our goal was to do as little as possible and relax. So I knew pretty much the exact costs going into this, so it was very easy to save for, and we had the best time. So very little planning involved. Compare that to the other trip I took last year. I went to Portland with my friend Ashley. We wanted this to be an adventure. We wanted to see the beach, we wanted to see all the waterfalls, we wanted to visit Astoria and eat at so many different restaurants. We had a lot that we wanted to do in a short amount of time, and we really took our time planning and put a lot of effort into it and creating an itinerary. So while both of these trips were very different, they were both successful because they fulfilled their goal of one being an adventure and one being relaxing. So maybe your vacation is looking a little bit more like this Portland trip where you have a long list of things you'd like to do. What I would recommend, and this is my absolute favorite travel tip, is to use a custom Google My Map. I took absolutely everything we wanted to do, I plotted it on this map, and I created different categories and broke things up by things to see, coffee and tea, restaurants, shopping, things like that. So when we were going around Portland, it made it very easy. If we had walked out of Powell's Books and we were both in the mood for a donut, we could pull out our Google map and look very clearly at the closest donut shop that we had wanted to visit. Once you see everything on the map, it becomes so much easier to create the loose itinerary. You can see, well, this museum is close to this restaurant, so let's put those both on the same day. So if you couldn't tell, I'm a huge fan of these maps, and they really help me with the next part of my routine, and that's to pick the hotel. I'll get a few different options that fall into my budget range, whether that's a hotel or maybe an Airbnb. When we were going to Portland, Ashley found these amazing tiny homes on Airbnb, and we were really excited, and we thought that was the direction we were going to go in. But when we added them to the map, they were so far from everything else that we wanted to do, and it just felt like we were going to waste a lot of times in the car, even though that would have been a really cool experience. So we ended up doing a traditional hotel that was in our budget but was much more centrally located. In Vienna, Jer and I made a different decision. We chose a much cheaper hotel that was kind of far out from city center, but it was conveniently located next to a metro line, and that was very clear to see on the map. So we were able to get in and out of the city easily, but because we spent so much less on accommodations, it freed up some of the budget for food, which was one of the main goals for that trip. I could talk about vacation planning for the rest of the afternoon, but I'm going to try to wrap this up and be a little quicker with my last couple points. When I'm doing the research and building out my dream itinerary, I also make notes if people mention anything about the culture. If I need to cover my shoulders when I'm going into a museum or a church, I just make note of all that so I can be respectful when I get there. Also, if they speak a different language, we'll take the time to learn a few phrases. My first time overseas was to Paris, and Jer really went all out and truly studied French. He used the Duolingo app, and he still practices to this day. And when we were over there, I felt like people were so responsive to him trying, even if it wasn't great French. He really was making the effort, and they were so kind about it. And a lot of people even let him practice and gave him tips. So I think that just goes back to showing respect. I hope you found something helpful in this video. And if you are planning a trip, I would love to know where you're going. So please leave that in a comment down below. I'm also going to link two blog posts, the one from Sherry that I mentioned with the different budgeting categories for vacations. And if you're traveling with kids, Ryan has such a good post on our site that I think will offer up some inspiration. So check the description box for those, but thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back next week with another video.